Hello guys and welcome to this tutorial about Hypercars on the brand new Le Mans Ultimate software. Guys, Le Mans Ultimate is out, and with that we have new toys to drive with. We have new toys to play with. We have Hypercars. We have received LMH and LMDh Hypercars from the 2023 season, and of course they do feature a hybrid system. Now, what we all need to learn and understand, and this is the first thing that really needs to come into our mind and that really needs to be thought of, these hybrid powertrains, these hybrid cars have no hybrid to improve their performance, as in more power, more straight line speed, more whatsoever, which every other game has gotten wrong, whether that's iRacing, whether that's Automobilista, also R-Factor 2. So far, every hybrid that is out on the market is performance improving. Not so on LMU, and this is the way that the WEC Hypercars and also the IMSA Hypercars are working with their hybrids. This is not performance-based, this is efficiency-based. This is very important. The hybrid is in place to improve the efficiency of the car, not the actual performance. And that is something that takes quite a little bit to get your head around and to have it settled in. So I hope this video can help you guys a little bit with perceiving these hybrids as they are. Still great machines, awesome thing of engineering, but whether you have a hybrid in deploy or whether you have a hybrid on the car or not is completely irrelevant. And we're going to see that later on in a little bit of driving footage. However, before we turn to the driving footage, guys, once again, if you appreciate this video, if you appreciate these guys, please subscribe us on the YouTube channel, ring the bell, and don't miss out on more Le Mans Ultimate tutorials. So, before we jump into the car, a couple of information first. What is this, hybrid thing about? What is the balance of performance also about? As, once again, the way these hybrids are working means also the balance of performance is going to be a bit different. As we know, all the hypercars out there, whether that's Clickenhouse, Toyota, Porsche, Ferrari, Funval, none of these look the same as each other, which is the reason because what ACO and FIA have done, they've brought out a regulation but left teams an open hand in how the chassis can work, how the chassis can look like, how the aerodynamics can work. Of course, there's a little bit of a framing still, but overall they wanted to give teams the opportunity to design their car like they want to have it, or how they interpret what is a hypercar. Now, this makes balance of performance obviously a bit tricky. So part of the balance of performance process is also that they have 3D measurements of the body shape and so on, and they take that into consideration and all that. But, that is WEC stuff. That is not so much how it works in Le Mans Ultimate. So what you need to understand, though, from the WEC regulations is that you have a new form of fuel, a new form of energy, so to say. So there is not only the standard liquid fuel that you burn in the internal combustion engine, which I will call ICE from here on, and there's also battery and electric energy that can be burned by the e-motor or by the electric motor. So both of them are responsible for the power deploy to the axis, to every driven wheel. And for some cars it's just rear axle, like for the Porsche LMDh and for the Cadillac LMDh. Those are LMDh configuration, which means they deploy at all time. They deploy a lot less electric energy in a peak, they only have rear-wheel driven powertrain. Whereas LMH cars, there is a little bit different. The Toyota, the Ferrari, and the Peugeot are considered to be LMH category, and they have their hybrid system, their hybrid e-motor mapped on the front, which means they are becoming four-wheel driven cars above a certain speed. So when I say above a certain speed, that is already part of the balance of performancing. So the Peugeot starts deploying at 150 kph, whereas the Toyota and the Ferrari are allowed to start deploying their electric energy at 119 kph. So once again, those hybrid systems are not in place to improve performance. So whether the Peugeot deploys 150 and the other cars at 190 does not do a single difference when it comes down to their acceleration or their top end speed on a straight. This is very important to know. However, though, that may do differences in terms of cornering performance or maybe wet track performance, something that we're going to find out with a Peugeot. Once the video is done, I'm going to link it to you in the top right corner. Is the Peugeot, like in real life, really the car to have for wet conditions? We're going to find out. Anyway, to coming back on the point, yeah, excuse me, sometimes it's a little thing that I get lost in transition. What is important to know about this hybrid and fuel system is that for strategy and for driving and for the balance of performance, it's not so much down to the actual ICE fuel, so the standard burnable fuel. For that reason, WEC has introduced a new type of fuel called virtual energy. So I have brought up a picture now as in how the virtual energy is being displayed on a live stream. What you can see here is a bunch of hypercars going down towards turn 1 in Sebring. And on the left hand side there is like the standings, and you see the virtual energy remaining, or the virtual energy left in the tank, so to say. Now what you need to understand is that this energy is nothing that you can fetch. It's completely intangible. So it is part of the balance of performance that, let's say, a Toyota, and I'm just giving out random values here, that a Toyota is allowed to burn 909 megajoule per stint, whereas a Ferrari would be allowed to burn 940 megajoule per stint in terms of energy. Whether that energy comes from the internal combustion engine or the electric motor is completely irrelevant in that stage. So here's another picture then of a hypercar and the hypercar regulation. Here you can see the virtual energy, and that is the electric energy plus the energy that's inside the fuel minus the fuel that's already burned, and that is the virtual energy left for the stint in a specific situation. I let that sink for a moment, because at the pit stop, it now really matters what is your virtual fuel consumption, your virtual energy consumption per lap. It matters more than what is your real fuel consumption per lap, because you know these cars have a fuel tank of 110 liters, but in reality neither of these cars needs the 110 liters to complete a full stint according to BOP regulations. According to my experience, it's the Ferrari that uses like 83 and the Porsche that uses like 91 liters for 100% of virtual fuel. And this is the interesting thing. This is now where the hybrid is coming into. The better your hybrid system, well, not the better your hybrid system, because it, you know, the more electric energy you deploy out of the hybrid system, the less fuel you need. Because remember, these cars are not performance driven with the hybrid. So, and let's say a Ferrari, it can deploy 200 kilowatts of energy by the electric motor on the front axis. That is 200 kilowatts less that the internal combustion engine needs to produce in power, therefore also using less fuel. So there is a big difference between using internal combustion engine fuel or using hybrid energy, hybrid electric energy to propel the car forwards. And we're going to see that in a moment when we're jumping into the car, because then we're going to mix these settings up a little bit. You guys will see that the lap time is almost not touched at all. I mean, minor mistakes and different torque levels at corner exits and how the traction control cuts in aside, but it's about the straight line speed, the actual car performance, that is the very same, and you're going to see that. And also you're going to see how the fuel consumption varies according to how much energy you deploy with the electric motor. So that is two very, very important strategic elements that could be used in many, many different ways across a stint and across an entire race. And we're going to find that out. So, guys, let's jump into the Ferrari at Monza. So guys, here we are in the garage, Monza, in the Ferrari Hypercar, and before we get going, very important, in the settings, controls, car controls, have all these buttons mapped here. Brake bias, brake migration, increment motor map, and regeneration. I will tell you during this little clip while. Right, so in the setup menu, you can find region level and electric motor map. You can region up to 200 kilowatts or nothing at all, and you can deploy up to 200 kilowatts or nothing at all in this Ferrari Hypercar. Those values might differentiate between the Hypercars, so the Porsche, for example, can only deploy maximum 50 kilowatts at the time, but of course that car will have always electric deploy on from every kph, from every kind of speed. Here the Ferrari, as you will see right now, at 190 that hybrid or that electric motor comes up to life. So while we are warming up the tires, we will need 2 laps in order to warm up the tires. As you can see right here, they have 26 or 30 degrees. That is way too little to do awesome racing with and to do comparable lap times. I can tell you a little bit more about the hybrid system though. I have mentioned before that the hybrid system is 100% efficiency based and not performance based. That means the car always produces the same amount of brake horsepower or power in general measured in kilowatts. I'm just gonna say it's 530 kilowatts and powertrain performance that the car can deliver. The internal combustion engine can deliver up to 530 of that, so 100%. Whereas the e-motor can produce up to 200 kilowatts. Currently it's deploying 80. So that is very important to understand, because with the hybrid system in place, it's the efficiency, so the amount of internal combustion engine fuel you need, that is going to be the big trigger, or that is going to be the big thing that the hybrid system is good at, let's say. Or that is what the hybrid system is made for, to reduce the amount of fuel required. So we go for our very first lap. Tire still not 100% to temperature, but you can see turn 1 has already been a bit better. Need to do another lap to completely fire up these tires. And then we have a closer look at the fuel usage and at the virtual fuel usage. As per the regulations, the virtual fuel burned every lap should be the same. Already note, this is an early access and this is not working at 100%. We will see in a bit. But according to my information, it is planned to make this working in the future, so no matter how much energy you deploy with the hybrid system or not deploy it, the virtual fuel usage should be close to 100% identical. Obviously small deviations are possible at all times, but currently the deviation is a bit too huge. As you can see right now, it is the first lap for us, and we have used 2.9%. and 2.3 liters in the in-lap. So we're going to see what this is after the first timed lap. That's going to be some sort of our reference points for checking how the hybrid is working. In the meanwhile, if you look onto the HUD on the right hand side, or also on the left hand side in the numbers, battery is almost drained 50%, so we're going to give it another lap or another 2 laps until it's completely empty. Fuel usage again 2.3 and energy usage again 2.9. So those consumptions are stable at the moment. We will probably still improve this lap by at least 6, 7, maybe 8/10, maybe even more, due to the tire still warming up. As you can see right now, we got 70 degrees, so still a little too low. And then we show off how the hybrid system actually works and what is the possibilities that you have, and also your responsibilities. As I can already start a little bit of the philosophy with the Ferrari. The Ferrari got its regen motor attached at the front, so the brakes are built in a way that they calculate and that they expect the electric motor to do its job. That means the front end brakes are a lot more weak than they would be without a hybrid. And the brake bias that you set into the car is fairly to the back. In fact, I think I'm running right now with a brake bias of, I think, 51-ish. Let me see. Yeah, 51.4. That is the mechanical brake bias that we need to set. And that is because the E-motor on the front, on regeneration, is obviously also part of the brake system, and therefore the actual brake bias is a lot more to the front, like 58%, 59% maybe, I don't know. But we will show you what happens as soon as you have hit 100% on the battery in towards the end of this little run here. Oops. Small mistake into the second chicken. Because as you can see right now, by the end of the lap we will have depleted our battery completely. And then we see what kind of reference time we're setting. As we're coming around all the last bits and drops of energy. One more regeneration into Parabolica. Then one more deploy here out of the Parabolica. And we're coming around the lap time then 35.1. So, battery is now empty. And I will also just turn off the motor map anyway, so we want to recharge the battery as much as possible without deploying anything. Now have a look what happens to the delta. Remember, we do not deploy energy at all. We're hitting 190 and the battery sign does not turn on blue, so we're not deploying. Yeah, we go identically quick though over the Curva Grande, only losing 7 or 8 thousandths, which is certainly not enough to make up for 80 kilowatts of power, right? In fact, we go even faster because the tire is still not 100% to performance, and of course, besides that, we've done a mistake in that second chicane. But here again, we're going down, back straight towards Ascari. Yeah, we're losing 20, maybe 30 thousandths. But again, this would be never enough to explain 80 kilowatts of missing power. And I'm gonna pause the game real quick when we come out of Parabolica to show you a little bit of information here on the steering wheel and on the HUD. We go into the final turn. Oops, a little bit of a wiggle. That will eat up our lap time. And we pause it real quick here. I'll move the seat back a little. As you can see on the steering wheel and also on the HUD, we have used 2.96% of virtual energy last lap, which is 3.0 on the HUD, and 2.35 liters, while we were still deploying energy, you know? The battery just turned empty the moment we went here over the start-finish straight. It was about this time last lap where we've drained the battery. Ever since then, no further deploy, and we're gonna see how this develops straight over the line as we moving on. So 2.87% of energy used last lap, but 2.6 liters of fuel used last lap. So that is a huge difference. Over 15% of internal combustion engine fuel that we burned more. At the same time, we're still regaining the energy, and we should hit full battery by the end of the lap. And I will demonstrate you why you should never ever run into 100% battery after having started the car. Because that is going to be a big one if you're not prepared for it. You can obviously prepare for it with your mechanical brake bias, but I assure you that this is not going to be what you want to see. Not sure if Parabolica will already hit the threshold. Let's see whether we hit 100%. Only about just, and you've heard it, the moment the battery stopped regenerating the energy or stopped receiving the energy, the wiggling and wheeling sound of the E-deploy of the electric motor kept going, and now we see for turn 1, same braking point as usual. And no chance to keep it. And that is exactly the reason, because it is about the front E-motor braking momentum missing, because there is no energy regenerated, so the regen doesn't work as well. It goes well for a couple of corners, but generally speaking it is extremely dangerous as in a derail braking. There you go, you kind of simply straight lose the car. So, but as we don't want to drive like this, of course, we're coming back to the road and at least gonna put a little bit of motor map again, so that we will run into 100% all. Right, gonna turn this off again. Because of course I want you guys to show also what happens if you use 100% deploy. In order to not only show you off again that this hybrid system is completely performance independent, or is not triggering the performance at all. So to not spin out again, I brake before. Maximum deploy. 190 kbh. There we go. Remember the fuel usage that we had with no deploy at all, 2.6. Let's see what it is this lap. And also check on the delta. Yeah, we have small improvements, but you know, 200 kilowatts is not really the time gain that you would expect from 200 kilowatts, I assume, right? So as you can see, that hybrid system being not performance based and not performance focused at all. In fact, it's going to be about efficiency. Perfect. So exit was absolutely similar compared to on the fast lap. The 10,000s that we are gaining right now is simply due to weight loss out of the last 3 or 4 laps before we've set the lap time. Same here onto the back straight towards Ascari. Here we lose a little bit more of time. It's also a little bit down to the engine deploy curve. But now we're gonna have a look on the energy used last lap and on the fuel used last lap. Energy 3%, fuel 2.16 just from maximum deploy. So that is absolutely crazy how much more efficient the engine is running. Remember, 2.6 with no deploy, 2.1 with full deploy. That is almost 25% less fuel consumed, and that is really what the hybrid is there for. It is there to take off the load from the ICE, to burn less fuel and be more efficient rather than actually be more performant. So, next up, to show you what is the different challenges with the hybrid system. We've spoken about the virtual energy before, and that you need to fuel up virtual energy on the pit road. What you need to understand are those two values, and I'm gonna pause this real quick here again. Virtual energy you are taking at the pit stop 100%. And for 100% of virtual energy, you get 82 liters of fuel. So what we're going to do now is we only box for 90% of virtual energy, because that gives us 90% of 82 liters of fuel. And that is really important that you guys understand this. The virtual energy is in place for the balance of performance. If you run out of virtual energy while you still may have fuel for going on around the track, you get a stop and go penalty. If you enter, or I think if you finish a lap when virtual energy is 0, or if you enter the pit road. So either way, you need to be at the pit box before the virtual energy has dropped to 0.0. And that is really, really important when it comes down to strategy, as it, you know, it's not so much about the fuel, not so much about the actual fuel consumption that you have, because let's face it, 110 liters, the car could go probably for an hour and a half or almost hour and 45, but it's the virtual energy that limits you on that one and is part of the balance of performance, not only in WEC but also here on the more Ultimate. So we're now coming to pit road, 60 kph, and a new feature that especially R-Factor 2 people appreciate. When you have to do the parking and someone is blocking your way, car gets moved. Maximum fuel 8 seconds. Watch down in the bottom right HUD. There we go. 90% of virtual energy, 73.8 liters, which is exactly 90% of 82 liters, as according to the pit stop calculation, or to the pit stop menu. And this is how the virtual fuel is working. So guys, now you know how the hybrid system is looking in the practical way. Let me know your comments and let me know your thoughts about hybrids here in Le Mans Ultimate, about how it is put into the game. Let me know what you think of it. Put it down in the comments area below. And well, I got some couple more information coming your way. So that is how the hybrid system is working on the Hypercars on Le Mans Ultimate. Guys, I hope you have enjoyed the little trip with a Ferrari out there in Monza, showing you how the system is working. And yeah, I like to recap on a few things and like to stress about a few things again. because every hypercar has kind of its own interpretation a little bit of the hybrid. There's, you know, certain details that vary from car to car. So the Toyota Hypercar, that is, I think, identical to the Ferrari, as the only car that is identical to the Ferrari. Both cars start deploying at above 190 kph. The Peugeot has deployment above 150 kph. And I'm not sure if the Peugeot is deploying less power in total, like is deploying less electric energy for that. But both the Toyota and the Ferrari, they can regen up to 100 to 200 kilowatts, and they can deploy up to 200 kilowatts. Then we do have the LMDh cars, which is the Porsche 963 and the Cadillac. They are deploying at any time when throttle application is done. Of course, you need to have the motor map enabled to deploy, but they are deploying at any time at a maximum of 50 kilowatts. And I think region-wise they are doing just 170. Anyway, about the LMDh cars, there is some specific, I want to say a special feature built into them, as they are LMDh configuration, as they are pulling out of the pit road or out of the garages solely on electric power. And that can get you in trouble if you're not careful. Watch this. So I quickly jumped into the Porsche 963 Hypercar. We are on pit road. As you can see, engine is not running. And this is the reason, because this is the LMDh configuration. That means they get going purely on energy power in pit road, performing a so-called cold start. And that is the reason why you should never run out of energy before coming to a pit stop. I'm gonna demonstrate you why. So we're coming to pit road, no battery in the tank at all. And I'm gonna tell you, well, I guess you guys can imagine what's going to happen. So the moment we're parking the car, engine's gonna be switched off. Remember, LMDh regulations. Well, engine's still going, but on release, it's off. And then you get going, or try to get going, but nothing ever happens. Even if you switch off the ignition, turn it back on, hit the starter, nothing's gonna happen. So your race will be done if you box with LMDh cars with 0% battery in the tank. So it's certainly never wise to run out of energy at any point anyway, but it might be a fatal catastrophe if you run out of battery with either the Porsche or the Cadillac right before the end of your stint, or before the pit stop. If you run 0% into the pits, you are doomed. And that is very, very important to keep in mind when it comes to strategy, whereas not sure if you should always, like, you know, you can't carry extra energy with you as a safety margin. You need to be always on top of your battery level, literally at all times. And that is, I think, what's making the hypercar category such an interesting one, as it comes with different challenges. It's not so much about the fuel, you know. I mean, and this is where the hybrids soars, where the sense of the hybrid really comes through. Of course, you could take the Ferrari, give it 100 liters on fuel, and be like, what do I care about that battery? I'm gonna just run on ICE fuel, like full petrol heads, you know. But you may need 100 liters of fuel, whereas people that run the hybrid system only need 82 liters of fuel for a full stint. So you in average always carrying 9 liters too much of weight around with you. And I think those 10 kilograms are also in a hypercar, like 2, 3, maybe 4 tenths a lap. So you really need to make use of the hybrid system. And once again, I would like to really recap on some things and really stress about some things regarding this hybrid system. The hybrid system is not here for performance reasons, it's here for efficiency reasons. We've seen on the Ferrari that you can run 10-15% less fuel consumption with the hybrid in the correct configuration. The hybrid is not giving you any performance gain whatsoever. You don't get more power. You may have a little bit differences in car balance maybe, but the overall power deploy of the car is always the same. Virtual energy is the new strategic element and is also the strategic element that you have to focus on. The importance of ICE fuel is not so huge. I also would like to stress again that currently this is an early access, hence we have the differences in the virtual energy being used per lap. So I think there will be an optimal zone of whether you rather want to deploy much and regenerate energy a lot, or whether you rather want to deploy low. As a matter of fact though, it's going to be lift and coast that is the only real way for you to stretch out the length of the stint. You cannot do it with deploy or less deploy on electric motor. There is no engine maps to set with. The only way that you can save virtual energy, which is what it is all about, is to do lift and coast, because that is the only circumstance where no energy is going into the drive shaft and is going not to be, well, no energy is going to be measured on those, tracking systems when it comes to how much power is being put into the drivetrain. Guys, I think that really sums it up. It's going to be great to see what kind of strategies people will run in the hypercars across the different tracks. Imagine Portimao, a lot of low-speed corners, 2 or 3 short hitch or short runs and sprints across the lap, only one longer straight where you can deploy electric energy. So that is probably a track where you can run a high mode and deploy at all times. And then on the other hand, there will be Le Mans with this long straights, open end, far above 190 kph in speed, so all the cars are going to deploy a lot of energy. And I think for those tracks it's going to be interesting how the energy management is really done. And yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts, let me know your criticism and also your outtakes or your takeaways out of that video. What do you think about the hybrid system? What do you like and maybe dislike about it? And do you appreciate the way MSG and Studio 397 have implemented this into Le Mans Ultimate? Let me know it down in the comments area below. I'm gonna happily answer your questions on that. And on a final note, you guys may have seen a couple of screen freezes in the clips. Yeah, your eyes didn't trick you. It is a known issue. I have also reported again, but it seems to be that the sparks, the special effect settings, if it's put on ultra and the car is producing some sparks while gliding over the ground, that can cause stuttering and screen freezes. Once again, this is early access, and when early access is done, that thing is hopefully fixed, so that video should also still be a thing when Le Mans Ultimate is out at some point in as a full product. But yeah, guys, let me know. And of course, if you have appreciated the insight, if you have appreciated the information here, give the video a like, hit that subscription button for more tutorials, and ring the bell to make sure to not miss out on more videos and tutorials for Le Mans Ultimate. And now, guys, get out, get your hands on the hypercar, enjoy Le Mans Ultimate.